Every night, without fail, this is what my last beats of the evening look like. I get into bed, settle in, the lights go off, and about 15 minutes later, my cat, my boy Mowgli, will come into the room, jump up onto the bed, of course using my stomach as a landing pad, which is not fun. Then he will go in between my wife and I, and he'll start this process of settling in. I'll wrap my arm around him. He collapses into the crook of my arm and immediately starts doing his little cute sucking of his toes and also making biscuits on my arm. Again, lovely, sometimes painful. So last night, while this whole ritual was going down and I've got a purring and toe-sucking and smurgling boy all tucked in my arm, I start to think, does he realize how special this is, this relationship that we have? Does he remember the first time he did this with me and the first time he trusted me and how our relationship was built to the point where he perches on my shoulder and rides around with me like a big parrot? I feel like it's a special thing, but I don't know if he does. So my question becomes, and I would assume some of you as well, what do cats remember? Do my cats have the same mechanisms of memory? Do they have the same stories around their lives? Or do they just forget something as soon as it happens? Well, that's what we're going to get into today, the memory of a cat. I have something for you to remember. Remember to subscribe to this channel. It makes the channel tick. If you haven't done it yet, remember to do it before you leave here today. And also remember to like this video if it's something that floats your boat in any way, shape, or form. All of these things are great. And don't forget to ring the bell as well. As I tend to do a lot these days, I would be remiss if I didn't mention my good friend and collaborator, Dr. Michael Delgado, who knows a lot about cats, and you'll see her writing all over the interwebs, and she really helped me out with a lot of the information in this video. So shout out to Michael, and by the way, check out her blog, the link is in the description. Now, I think the first very useful thing that we can do here is separate the experience of cat from human. We all have memory and they all function in different ways, but that's because of what we have available to us. So for humans, our triggers of memory and a lot of what we do with memory is based on the verbal storytelling, the story of our lives. We talk about it with others. We write it down. We actually determine what are the most impactful moments by relating it to others in a verbal way. Cats do not do that. You didn't need me to tell you that. The cats do not do that. We are a very visual species. We get a lot of our cues that way. Cats are not that. We know that cats get a lot, if not most of their information through scent. So we know that we're just very different, and it's based on a very different set of experiences. So I want to put that out there so that as we're exploring, this is not who a cat is vis-a-vis who a human is. So there are two types of memory that I think are the most important. There's short-term memory and long-term memory. Short-term memory is something that might happen in a moment, is used in that moment for the most part, and then gone. Long-term memory is information that is committed to long-term recall. Important names or dates or facts, that kind of thing. Long-term and short-term actually speak to one another. If we experience something in the short term that is important to us to any degree, it makes the move over to long term. We just filter it in to the long term. So in the short term, we use that information, and then if it's not important to our lives in some way or another, we discard it. If it is important, it just does its little migration over to our long-term recall. So a good example of this in humans is, let's imagine that you just got a voicemail. The doctor's office called. I'm listening to the voicemail. We really would love to hear from you about your upcoming appointment. Please call us at 720-713-47... Okay, 720-473, 720-423. I'm just getting in my mind. I dial at 720-423. Good. Doctor's office. I've forgotten the phone number. It's gone because I needed it in that moment. It has no bearing on my life after that, and it's gone. That's an example of short-term memory at its best, and worse, I guess. For cats, what is important is completely different. You know, I always talk about the raw cat, the ancestral cat that is very much alive and in your cat today. What is the most important thing to that cat on a daily basis? hunt, catch, kill, eat. And also staying alive, All of those things are really important. So now you got to start to think that for a cat, the where they secure food, that goes from short term to long term. Hey, I caught a mouse here tonight. I'm going to come back here tomorrow night. Hey, I caught it 2 nights in a row. I am going to keep coming back to this hot spot. I will remember this because I have hunted, caught, and killed. I have a physical experience of that is now part of my reality. Now, if I went to a spot and nothing happened, it's gone. This is exciting because this all talks to our friend, the ancestor, the raw cat. So a 2006 study published in Animal Cognition showed that a cat's short-term memory of a hidden object declined like instantly, rapidly. That memory was gone in a minute. However, if there was a memory associated with physical action, with moving around, avoiding obstacles, running, whatever, then that memory could persist for up to 24 hours. And here's the capper. One researcher called the act of repetition over and over again cementing the memory. We've now done that migration from short-term to long-term based on what? Based on obtaining food. That is a primary need in cats, and one of the ways that short-term and long-term work together to help their survival. But is it all about securing food and where a mouse goes and where it doesn't go? No, of course not. That doesn't equate to a life, really. That's just a purpose, and your cat's not a robot. But we know that short-term memory, and this again is just like humans, if they are in a spot where nothing happens, then that nothing gets deleted from the computer. But if something good happens or bad happens, it'll be retained. And again, there is a lot of similarity between us and them. If I experience you every day, and every day you make me laugh, or I just get that sense of connection, but it happens every day, man, you're not a phone number I'm going to forget, and you're not a name or a face I'm going to forget. We're going to now put you into my scrapbook of memory, as Shakespeare would call it, and we would just hold it there because we have a good experience. Similarly, if every time I walk through this door here, I get hit in the head with a frying pan, and it happens a couple of times, I ain't walking through that door again. We learn the same way. And for cats, just think about how clicker training works. When we do clicker training, we are showing you that through the sound of this clicker, something good's going to happen. And then we go from there. If you do this behavior, if you do a sit, something good's going to happen, and it's going to happen every single time. That's how short-term goes to long-term. Now, when it comes to relationships, again, I don't want to sound like I'm turning animals or humans into robots, but we have to look at cause and effect. So when it comes to you, of course you're a part of your cat's long-term memory. If there's lots of reasons for it, whether it's affection and what they get from that, whether it's the arrival of food and resources of any degree that always appear when you're there, whatever joyful experiences that exist between you guys, that becomes committed to long-term memory. Here's a good example. I deal with a lot of my clients who there's one partner in the relationship who the cat loves, and one they can either do without or they really fear and they won't go near for no reason, not because there was any trauma or anything. So I talk to them about what I call the Santa Claus effect, and that involves the person who is the cat's favorite removing themselves just for a couple of weeks. No loves and pets, no food, no play. But the other partner takes it all. They are now Santa Claus. Every time they walk into the room, it's like a party. Great things happen, and it happens consistently. And that's how we form that positive long-term memory with that partner. And it works, by the way, just in case that's you guys. Now, when it comes to other animals, do cats remember other animals and have relationships? Well, of course they do. As a matter of fact, there was a study done that showed that kittens who were separated from their mom, a year later they'd be reunited, and the kittens definitely gravitated towards mom and very well knew her. And a lot of that might be through scent, because like I said before, a lot of the way that cats retain long-term memory is through scent. By the way, those kittens would also recognize each other if they were separated for a year and then brought back together again. They very well know each other. And I know a lot of you guys have asked me that very question, and there you have it. how cats retain memory through trauma. Now that unites us all. If something traumatic happens to you, that just becomes a part of your life that gets incorporated into your life. I mean, I worked at a shelter for many years. We saw cats and dogs that would come in, and inadvertently we would trigger them with something. Like one time it happened to me as I was cleaning the kennels with a broom, and I got close to a dog with that broom who had just come in, and he instantly just peed himself. He had an association with a broom that has been committed to his long-term memory because it represents threat. It represents a threat to him, and let's just face it, it's scary. So we know that traumatic incidents are committed to long-term memory just as much as pleasurable ones. One other facet of memory that seems to unite humans and cats, and I'm sure other animals as well, is a loss of memory as we get older. Not for everybody, but a lot. There's a loss of brain cells that happens naturally, but in a lot of cats and dogs and humans and whoever else, memories just seem to disappear sometimes, and that's a decline in cognitive health. Again, we see it a lot. As a matter of fact, I have a flower essence remedy that I make and sell, and it is called Mind and Memory. And Mind and Memory is there not to solve the problem, because we have not solved that problem, but it reduces the anxiety around that cognitive decline. And that's what Mind and Memory is there for. So if you have a senior or anyone suffering cognitive decline, please try this. You know what's interesting is that in exploring this and applying it to my life, in a lot of places, including in my books, I've talked about cats as Zen masters, someone to emulate because they are so good at being in the moment. But it's really interesting. That is something that I realize now is filtered through my own experience of memory. And sometimes there's a little bit of, vulnerability and resentment because, your cat can come up to you, give you some love, and walk away. There's no attachment to a storyline. It was a moment, I felt it, and now I'm gone. It does apply to Mowgli. I mean, I got to a point where I say, am I just an arm? Am I just a place for him to make biscuits? Here's the thing. There is a place where science leaves off. That it all just stops and our knowledge stops. But where science leaves off, the heart picks up. I know exactly what's going on with my boy while we're laying here. We are having a thing, and we have that thing every night, and we have moments every day, and we have a relationship. And his memory of me, whatever that's filtered through, whether it's scent or good experiences or whatever the things that I've outlined here, there's that other thing. And that's what I fell asleep to last night. Answered my own question. Let me know about you guys. What's your relationship with your cats like? And what do you think about cat memory? Put it all down there in the comments, along with any ideas that you might have for another video. Until next time, everybody, light, love, and cat mojo to you.
Meow.